Truth does not live in opinions, it lives in structure. Some truths govern feelings, some govern behavior, and some govern reality itself. Metaphysics asks what exists, what orders existence, and what happens when you align with it or violate it. Gravity is metaphysical. You do not vote on it, you do not reinterpret it, you either align with it or you break. And Christ belongs in that category, not as a lifestyle, not as a cultural symbol, but as a claim about the deep structure of reality itself. When Christianity says that Christ is the Logos, it is not speaking metaphorically. It is saying that reality is intelligible, moral, ordered, and purposeful, and that Christ is the pattern holding it all together. This is why Christ's image endures, why his symbol transforms, and why his words do not expire. Truth does not vote. Truth does not adapt. Truth does not negotiate. Truth orders reality, and reality enforces truth. Christ did not arrive as an idea. Christ arrived as alignment, and every life bends towards order or towards collapse. In today's video, we are going to be getting into some of the key points on why Christ is transformative and why his truths transcend the reality that you and I see. If Christ were merely symbolic, he would not still be reordering human lives. So Logos means the structure that makes reality itself intelligible. It is not opinion, emotion, or tradition. It is the pattern that holds order together. When the Gospel of John calls Christ the Logos, it is claiming that he, Christ, is the organizing principle of reality itself. This is proof why his teachings produce coherence, alignment, and harmony. And it does this across psychology, morality, and meaning. A man who aligns with the Logos experiences proper integration, and a man who resists the Logos experiences fragmentation. This is not mystical language. This is metaphysical causality. Now, this is why Christ is able to transform. Christ corresponds and represents how reality functions and how reality is built. When a person aligns behavior with objective moral structure, it produces psychological coherence because the nervous system stabilizes around truth-consistent patterns. In the beginning was the Word. It's demanding you to live your life aligned with truth, not preference. In society, the modern educational system reduces truth to perspective. Algorithms reward relativity, and consumerism treats belief as a taste more than anything else. This dissolves Logos into an opinion. A culture that denies structure produces confusion by design. So what we could do is start defining truth as discovered, not chosen. Truth is completely objective, so this subjective notion that we carry is flawed, but this will overall help us perceive our beliefs as something much more than identity accessories. Now, what is transcendent truth? Well, to get started, not all truths bend when culture changes. A transcendent truth is something that stays true regardless on emotion, preference, era, or agreement. For instance, gravity does not ask for consent or the cultural zeitgeist, and moral law functions the same exact way. Christ's teachings persist because they describe how humans flourish when aligned with reality. This is why consciousness activates under disobedience. Inner dissonance is not social conditioning. It is metaphysical friction. When truth is violated, consequence follows. Transcendent truth governs outcomes, whether acknowledged or not. When moral law is violated, this produces internal stress because your consciousness is signaling this misalignment with reality itself. Now, society fails in this category because we have a therapeutic culture that reframes guilt as pathology. Media labels consciousness as oppression, and this trains people to silence their innate biological warning system. A culture that numbs consciousness manufactures disorder. So what we could do is stop explaining away guilt and write one area where consciousness or awareness has been ignored, and then correct this behavior this week, whether or not it's something you've been putting off, postponing, or straight up ignoring. Use consciousness and use awareness to battle it this week. Truth ignored does not disappear. It retaliates. Now, the cross could actually be thought of and perceived as a metaphysical pattern. Now, what do I mean? The cross is not decoration. It is a blueprint. The cross represents voluntary suffering in obedience to a higher order. This pattern appears everywhere where meaning is forged. Strength emerges through sacrifice. Christ does not eliminate suffering. He reorganizes it into redemption. This explains why in the Christian ethos, responsibility integrates, shapes, rather than harms. When suffering is accepted for true, it then transforms the soul. So the takeaway is, the cross is the cost of alignment, not a symbol of defeat. When suffering is accepted voluntarily for moral purpose, it produces resilience because meaning stabilizes our physiological stress response systems. Now take up your cross. What does this mean? This means take your responsibility instead of escaping pain. Now society could be summed up as a comfort economy. It monetizes avoidance. Algorithms reward distraction, and pornification anesthetizes struggle. A society allergic to suffering produces fragile people. Not 5 times out of 10, not 6 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, this happens. So what we could do is choose one responsibility you're avoiding and carry it restlessly for 30 days. Do not numb discomfort. Suffering avoided decays you, whereas suffering carried forms you. So how does Christ relate to the moral law? In this Christological perspective, moral law is not invented by society, but it is discovered within them. And Christ intensifies this law by moving it forward. This is why he speaks of the heart, not just behavior. Integrity is alignment between inner intention and outer action. Disobedience fractures identity, and obedience integrates it. Moral law has written itself into the soul. In society, moral relativism dissolves standards. Education avoids judgment. And worst of all, responsibility is reframed as harm. A culture without standards breeds self-contradiction. Peace comes from alignment, not indulgence. Now, why do the followers of Christ transform through obedience through him? Christ does not change opinions. He changes behavior at the root. Christ's commands rewire attention, impulse control, and self-governance. This is why obedience precedes understanding. When behavior aligns, perception follows. We could think of obedience to a transcendent order as the gateway to transformation. When disciplined behavior is repeated, it produces an identity change because neural pathways reinforce moral patterns. In John it says, if you love me, keep my commandments. Motivational culture prioritizes feelings. Therapy delays action. And corporations sell comfort without discipline. A feelings-first culture collapses willpower. Choose one command of Christ and obey it daily without negotiation. Measure by consistency and not emotion. You could do things like not gossiping, watching your tongue, helping others, and serving, just to name a few. If you practice any one of these things for a week straight, you will unequivocally notice a revolutionary difference within your character. Truth obeyed transforms much faster than truth admired. So what makes somebody internally dissonant, and what makes somebody internally aligned? Well, first of all, peace is not found. It's produced. Inner dissonance arises when behavior violates truth. Alignment resolves it. Christ offers coherence, not ease. Not once in the Gospels does he state that this experience with him is going to be easy, but he does state that it will be necessary. This is why repentance restores clarity. A person avoiding responsibility feels restless because alignment is broken. We could think about it as disorder inside mirrors disorder lived. When behavior contradicts moral belief, it produces restlessness because your identity is losing coherence on what is true. This digital overstimulation that we live in fractures attention, silence is avoided, and accountability disappears. A distracted society cannot sustain alignment. So instead of going on your phone at night or doing some sort of hedonistic behavior, what we could do is replace it with reflection, thoughts, ideas, or even prayer. Now, secular systems deem suffering as error or randomness, but this secular meaning is antithetical to the Christ equation. Christ explains suffering as formation. Only the gospel integrates pain into purpose without denying reality. This is why Christ outlasts ideologies. Christianity explains meaning more completely because it accounts for suffering. When suffering is interpreted as meaningful, it produces endurance because purpose regulates stress. Materialism denies your soul. Progress narratives deny tragedy, and the educational system avoids existential weight. A worldview without suffering cannot sustain weight. Now, what we could do is reframe hardship as formation. Ask what responsibility it demands, and then act accordingly. Meaning survives suffering only when suffering has a purpose. Avoidance reveals resistance, and transformation begins when excuses end. So what are you refusing to carry that Christ is commanding you to bear? Resistance always delays transformation, but obedience to the transcendental logos initiates it. When responsibility is delayed, it produces anxiety because unresolved moral demand persists. Blame culture externalizes fault, and victim narratives dissolve agency. A culture without responsibility collapses inward. Reality will shape you, either through alignment or through collapse. Carry the cross or be carried by disintegration. Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any comments or questions, or you want to get involved with my one-on-one coaching, check the description and write your comments and replies. If you like this sort of content, please subscribe and like the video. And if you watch this video to the very end, here are some of the playlists I have for my other content. I hope everybody has a good day, good week, a good month, good year, and I will definitely see you guys and gals in the next one.